to be wealthy? Do you want to be in control of your finances? Do you feel like you mostly get financial advice from people who are trying to sell you a bank's products? If your answer is yes to any of these questions, then stay tuned because you are at the right place. Welcome to Money Convos, a club committed to helping people achieve financial freedom by providing education and guidance on personal finance and investments. We have a group of experts who share their knowledge and give practical advice with no strings attached. At Money Convos, we have candid, mature conversations about wealth, how to create it, grow it, and protect it. We share our experience and encourage our audience to share theirs and ask questions. Join us every Thursday on Clubhouse at 7 p.m. GMT. We also have book discussions that bring out practical lessons. So far, we have read Dumb Things Smart People Do With Their Money, The Richest Man in Babylon, and The Millionaire Next Door. Most importantly, we have one-on-one financial coaching sessions where we guide individuals through setting financial goals, retirement planning, budgeting, investments, risk management, and so many more areas. The goal is to get you to financial independence from whatever income level you're at. Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, and Clubhouse. The handle is at Money Convos GH, or send us an email at moneyconvosgh@gmail.com so we get you started on your journey to financial freedom. Now that you're all caught up, let's head into our next conversation.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's conversation. It's not happening on the usual Mondays. It's happening on Tuesday, but next week we are going to resume the usual schedule. I have here with me Jennifer, the voice you just heard in that intro, and we are continuing our conversation on Rich Dad, Poor Dad. We are looking at Rule 2, why teach financial literacy. Last week we did Rule 1, and this time we are doing Rule 2. Rule 1, just to serve as a recap for us, Rule 1 said, Rule 1 was the rich don't work for money. So we are jumping on to Rule 2. I guess these rules are building up to us to become rich so that we wouldn't have to work for money and money starts working for us. So welcome, Jennifer, to today's conversation. How you doing?
Hello, Elikem. I'm doing well, thank you. And you?
I'm good. We had a long weekend, so some entertainment and then some rest and relaxation. Okay.
Yeah, I can see your new haircut. Go you.
Yeah, I got that just this morning. We are returning to work partially, so I have to look at the part.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's get into today's conversation, and it's the Rule 2 is talking about why teach financial literacy, and it's an interesting anecdote or an interesting example or story that this chapter starts with. And it starts with talking about where the two friends are right now. Rich Dad is the father of Mike. That was Robert's best friend. And he mentioned how Mike is now, or at the time of writing this book, was extremely wealthy, and Robert Kiyosaki himself wasn't doing so bad. He also had a few millions, but Charlie, you know how they say, yeah, mega, mega, hoo. There's rich and there's rich, so I appreciated the humility. But he said something about retirement, and I just quickly quote what he said on retirement. He said, for him, retirement, that's Robert, his retirement doesn't mean not working. For him and his wife, it means that barring unforeseen cataclysmic changes, we can work or not work, and our wealth grows automatically, staying ahead of inflation. So for them, it's about how much how much wealth they have, and how it can take care of their needs and grow without them working. Jenny, what are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, this was also very interesting, and I even highlighted it when I was reading it. Like it's not like, oh, when I retire, that is it. I'm going to relax on some beach and just no. It could mean that you are not working, or you can be doing something that you are passionate about. That, let's say, it wasn't really getting you income like the way your normal work was giving you income, so you would want to do that as well. But then you are for barring anything, as they said, cataclysmic and all of that. Anything else that comes that you are in normal everyday life, you can still go about your day like the way you are relaxing and enjoying life. And then your money and your assets are working for you and sort of feeding you and looking after you in your retirement years.
Yeah, yeah, cataclysmic. So cataclysmic things like if Russia invades Ukraine and you are Ukrainian, that one there is thrown all your
Yeah, your
projections how to
all
work.
of it. Yeah.
For me, I can identify with this. And in my much younger days, I used to tell people that I want to retire by 30, and people were like, "Oh my God, what's this? It's ridiculous, unheard of, blah blah blah." I'm like, one, thanks for the vote of no confidence, and um, two, it's all about my definition, right? My definition has been the ability to do whatever I want whenever I want, and money can bring that kind of freedom. So that's something I was looking forward to. And oh, I guess I have just one more year to see if I can do that, but I think I just have to push the deadlines. Yeah. But yeah, imagine getting to that point where your income from your investment is enough to take care of you. That would be a golden place to be, right?
Yeah.
Many years ago, maybe 5, 6 years ago, people would ask me, or yeah, even before, to even like last year, someone asked me, so if you get $1 million, would you stop working, or will you change? Yeah, will you stop working? I'm like, for many years into my career, my answer was no. I wouldn't stop working. I enjoy what I'm doing, and until it's gotten to a point where I've learned so much from it. It's time to move to the next phase. Then I would keep doing that, because can you imagine life without, I wouldn't say work, but life without a purpose. And work, it depends on how you define it. So you could just be doing what you could resign from your current job. That's great, and go and do something that you want to enjoy. You enjoy doing, unless it's truly, truly for you. It's all leisure. So yeah, that's my take on his definition. That's Robert Kiyosaki's definition of retirement. And when you actually look at this definition, there's quite an equation to it. It could work for anyone, right?
Yeah.
Someone's expenses may be $1 million a year. Another person's expenses may be just $30,000 a year. So if depending on your level of expenses, then you get to determine what your level of wealth would be. Someone could get there faster, and someone could get there much slower. You see. So yeah, Jenny, do you have a number in mind for yourself so far, or you wait till 60?
No. So a number in mind right now, sometimes because of inflation, I'll have a number and then before I realize we get there and then it's not as much as I thought it would do. So I have a level that I think I want to get to, but not a specific number. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, okay. I guess for me, I don't have a number. I just want to get as rich as possible. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Let's move on and start talking about financial literacy. And as Money Convos, we always talk about financial literacy. So this chapter is right down our alley. It's about what we talk about, trying to get people to financial independence. However, I realized that this book takes a certain twist to it, and so it brings a fresh perspective on the topic, right? This is something that we say all the time. It's not how much money you make, it's how much you keep. I tell people this all the time, and people are, especially when you go on Twitter. when you go on what people call Ghana Twitter, and you say such a thing, the kind of comments you get, replies you get, people will say, "Oh, you are privileged. You are talking out of having a good job and blah blah blah," right? And people are always just looking for, "I want to make more income, more income, more income." But with all that extra income, they still can't survive. Everyone is going like, "Wow, if I had double of my salary, I would save." Yet they get double and they keep saying, "If I get double," every time someone is just looking at the next and next and next, right? But people at even smaller levels are able to do well. There are stories in my company of people, drivers, who, of course, granted, they've been working for many years, maybe in their 50s, and they have houses. Yes, the houses are not in cantonments. The houses are in Kaswa, on the Sawon Road and all that. And these are people who bought these houses like 20 years ago. So you can imagine the time that they bought these houses, they were literally in the forest, or they bought the land and started building. They were in the forest. I'm even saying bush. I say call it a forest, right? So, but now they have, some of them have houses that they've rented. Some they've been able to give to their children, seeing children through school, and even now their income is barely what someone straight out of undergraduate university studies is making. So it really goes to show you that it was about those people's financial discipline that has afforded them the ability to take care of their families and their children, many children, through education, and build homes for them, and the homes that houses that they are renting for income. So yeah, Jenny, what do you also say about, think of these two statements?
Okay. So I think this is the golden rule of um telling people that, oh, make more and your problems will be solved. No, it doesn't work like that. It's not. You can make um $5 billion a month, and if you don't have the means of keeping that $5 billion with you on your person more than, let's say, a month, and converting it to quote unquote assets, you are still problematic. And I like the way he had an anecdote in the past, in the chapter, where he started talking about big people. So in, like, this person works here, this person is the head of this person is this. And then he came to, so that was in 1923. Then he came to talk about, like, after the recession in 1929. And then most of them were broke. One had committed suicide. A lot of one was in mental hospital, but all of them had one thing running through them: they were all broke. And these were the people that were at the helm of affairs when, like, in 1923. So they had quite some. And even if let's say they were at the helm in 1923, that means that they climbed. So their income grew from level to level to level to where they are currently. But then still, just shy of 7 years, they were back to where they had been when they were born, with nothing. You see, so it's very serious. Like, you can have so much money, but then if you do not know how to keep it, and it's just going as expenditure, it's not, your income can't do anything about for you. Yeah. Thank you.
Exactly. You said some of them were back to where they were born. Imagine if they were born with silver spoons in their mouth. That means they ended up less than where they were born at. Yeah, yeah. So it may seem counterintuitive
Yeah.
because all we going through school, everything is more all about making money. Everyone wants to talk about, I want to make money, I want to get rich, I want to just, it's all about the income, all about the income. But really, it's about how much of it you keep, right? Okay, moving
Yeah, and
on
I
to
want to
the
say something
next.
before we move on. Elikem,
Okay.
I want to just say something before
Mm-hmm.
we move on. So there's also
Sure, go ahead.
this hula baloo about, oh, like, when you finish school, then you get a good paying job, then you start acquiring things that people will use to see that, oh, I have arrived. Especially those of us who come from the hinterlands. Like, when you hear that, oh, the person has moved to Accra, the person has to show you that, like, we have moved on, we are not the level that we used to be anymore. but that is also making, like, it's also adding, showing that, oh, you have arrived, but then you won't be building assets. So it's all adds up to letting what you get seep out of your fingers, and before you realize what you are keeping is very, very little. Yeah.
Yeah, Jerry, that's very true. People easily fall into that trap, and sometimes it takes shocks to get people to wake people up out of that. If ever they get woken up out of that, and by that time it's even too late, you know. So it's important that we let people hear this very early so that you don't have to go through all this drama. Okay, let's go on to the next point. Now, the financial literacy that this book was trying to give was something very simple, right? And it's summarized into these three statements: the rich buy assets, the poor only have expenses, the middle class buy liabilities that they think are assets. Charlie, there is the last one that is most profound for me. The middle class buy liabilities that they think are assets. And someone once said, and we'll get into this in the next few slides. This was just to give a summary, and then we will explain each of these items. A friend said something that, see, the poor, they can't. Is it that they can't think about getting wealthy or something like that because they are so busy trying to stay alive. They are so busy trying to not be poor. They are so
Survive.
busy trying to
Yeah.
survive, trying to not be hungry, so they can't think about some of these things. So truly, Charlie, the poor, I'll be honest, I'll be frank, they really have very little choice. They really have very little choice. And it all starts for them. It makes sense for it to start from earning an income, earning a little more income, more and more and more, right? But saving some aside because when you start, you already have a lot of expenses sky high. Then you have to make sure that your income is above that, and then you can save something. But Charlie, Jennifer, I think it's safe to say that me and you, dear, we are in the middle class, aren't
Oh yes, we are in the
we?
middle class.
Okay.
You are getting to the upper bound of the middle class, but yeah.
Amen. Amen to that. Amen to that. In the next few years, hopefully. So, you know, this is where it's so worrying. It's so worrying where people feel like they are on the right path, but they are not on there. They are actually not, and they are like they need to be disillusioned from that. All right, let's get into the details so that we get it. What is the difference between an asset and a liability? Yes, to our accountants out there, to our hardcore finance people, Jennifer and Co. Please, Robert Kiyosaki issued a disclaimer. He defines assets and liabilities differently. And per his definition, an asset puts money in my pocket, a liability takes money out. Jenny, what do you think of this definition?
So I think this is the most basic definition of an asset and liability, and then it is it is oversimplified, I think. But then again, this is what makes it seep into your consciousness, no matter who you are, no matter what your level of your background is. At least you get this, something that is putting money in my pocket, something that's taking money out of my pocket. You are able to visualize and then interpret it. So I think this works for everybody, lay people. Yeah.
Yeah, it works for everybody. It's fit for purpose. This is
Yeah.
not a book about IFRS. It's not about company accounting. No, no, no. It's about personal finance, the average person, especially trying to get people from that low level to their up level. And it's basic, nothing too deep. It's either something is putting money in your pocket or it's putting it out. If it's putting it into your pocket, it's an asset. If it's taking it out, it's a liability, right? So let's talk about some of the things that are assets. I guess we all know the assets. Jenny, can you mention some of the top of your head or as
So we
outlined by
have
the book?
financial securities, which are assets. They, when you buy them, they have an expected return that they'll give you. So they are sort of adding money into your pockets. So that is a level of asset. Even real estate, even though some, so we'll get into the asset and liabilities, but then real estate is an asset whereby if you buy it and it's a commercial real estate, you are looking at rental income that people will come and live in it, and then, or let's say rent is for a business companies, and then pay you rent every, let's say, month or every quarter or every year. So that is money that is an asset that is putting money back into your pockets. Yes, all of these are some of the examples there. Sorry, I want to say one last time before you come in as well.
Okay.
Intellectual properties.
Yeah.
In Ghana, it's not so rampant, but it's really interesting that this book is quite old. But then he
Mhm.
was talking about this, so I think we could also look at this patenting things that belong to us, so that we can be getting royalties from them in hundreds of years to come. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And so I was even on the topic of intellectual property, I was thinking about it in a Ghanaian context and asking, what could make this work in the Ghanaian context? Patents are not a big deal, right? But imagine you are a tech person, you develop a software, and you just do it like a software as a service where you just set it up for a company and they use it, and then you just go and sit down and every month they pay you a fee, that kind of thing. I know it may be borderline like going into being a business, but it's really about, I think he's touching on the concept of passive income. I'm sure the book will talk about passive income later, but that's the concept here. In fact, all these financial assets are really about passive income. You've just done the groundwork and everything else is just money coming in, right? So yeah. Okay, other assets that we can consider are stocks. That's owning shares in companies. There are bonds, there are notes. Those are fixed income instruments. So you go and you either are putting the money in the bank or you are buying these kind of stock investments or bond investments, and they'll be providing you with some return over time. So those are the assets. All right. Then there are the liabilities, and according to the book, it's giving examples of liabilities as mortgages, consumer loans, credit cards.
Yeah,
For
debt.
some,
Mm.
come again.
I said credit card debt. I was adding to that.
Yeah. Yes, credit card debt. And then there's school loans, so some people also have school loans. So these are some of the liabilities. And immediately, these ones, you think about them and you're like, okay, mortgage, every month you are making a payment, that kind of thing. Consumer loans, you have to pay off these loans. Money is leaving you to go, so it's that these are the more basic type, right? But along the line, the author suggests something quite radical. And what is that? The home as a liability. Well, this is something that resonates with me. And in fact, since I started in finance, like out of university, undergraduate, working in finance, I didn't even refer to rich dad, poor dad. But I agree with him on the issue of a home as a liability. I came from the angle of I did the model, I worked the math, renting versus owning, mortgages and all that, and I came up to that conclusion. He even simplified it. Jenny, before we get into the details, or perhaps you can even start sharing the details. What do you think of the home as a liability? Perhaps you declare your stance. Do you agree or disagree?
Okay, so your home, um, the emotional aspect that I identify with what the other people's chagrin, that, hey, how can you say that's a liability? I understand where they're coming from. I understand where, like, you've built, like, sort of your home, so is sort of your symbol, where this is my drop. Like when you see the globe, that dot on it that belongs to me, that is mine. So it's like a symbol of all the things that I've done in this life. But then it is true, because you're always paying something, you're always maintaining something, you are always doing something on the home that is taking money out of your pockets. The home in itself, if you bought it, or let's say you built it in Ghana, we usually build our homes. If you built it, it has taken a huge chunk of money from your pockets. So let's say it's a sunk cost, you will still have to maintain it. And it is not bringing any money into your pocket. You can say that, oh, indirectly, it is preventing you from renting, so it is preventing you from taking money out. But then it's not directly putting money in your pocket. And because there are a lot of expenditure that you have with it, that's why we deem it to be a liability. Yes. And for instance, and even in Ghana where we don't I was saying that we don't usually buy or use mortgages. People like to build. But go outside Ghana where there are mortgages. You've taken a 30-year mortgage to buy a home. It means that every month for a good 30 years you are paying out money to like a service to your home. If you forfeit some payments before you realize they are foreclosing your house. So when you look at it like that, we are only tied to the emotional aspect to it, that is calling it an asset, but really looking at it like that, it's a liability. And I want to cite an example. So I had a friend, and we went to Wesley Girls together, we're in business school together, and she was from a rich home. She lived in Kaswa, and she still lives in Kaswa. So her dad used to work at a very lucrative like job and all of that, and the man got sick. It took them a while to realize what exactly was wrong with him. So imagine hospital bills and all of those things. When they finally realized what was wrong with him, he was so weak that he couldn't maintain his job. And before we realized, they were getting out of their home because apparently it had been a mortgage, and I think he had paid quite a huge sum of it, but then he still has some to pay. And because he wasn't able to honor the payments, they took the house and they just came tumbling down, like everything. Just, it was like a house of cards. The man got sick, got out of his job, his house. They had to move to a very small building and all of that. So imagine if it were an asset, this wouldn't have been happening. So yeah, it's it really, you should really look at these things when you are planning for your assets and liabilities, because pardon my French, shit can really get real. Yeah.
Yep. Shit gets real. Yeah, it's a sad story. It's a sad story that you've mentioned. So for me, my take on this is the home as a liability, right? I think the most important thing we need uh, is a roof over our heads, a shelter. That's the important thing we are trying to solve for. That's key. It's not about whether you build or you buy or you rent. The key thing is we need a roof over our heads. We need shelter. That's the main problem. Now, when you focus on that main problem, then you can actually find out what is the most efficient way to solve it. But if you start from the point of I need to own a house, then you're actually missing the larger scheme of things and ways to benefit. So, in the US, like you mentioned, they can get 30-year mortgages. And with that, it makes the monthly payment so small that you can compare it with rent, right? But in Ghana, where we do 10 years, maximum 15 years in mortgages on a normal, right? Maybe some banks that I'm not sure, I don't know about, would probably give higher, longer tenors. But at 15 years, paying off those mortgages, the interest payment or the monthly payment would be quite high. Here's the thing. I actually looked at it and I'm like, because there was a time I was considering a mortgage. I think mortgages are brilliant. If you have made a decision to own a home, it's a brilliant idea. All right. Especially when you compare it to the alternative in Ghana. Like Jenny was saying, yeah, in Ghana, most people build and they do it one cement bag at a time. So you have an uncompleted building for like 6, 7 years before you can finally finish it. And all your finances are locked in an uncompleted building, which is worth less than even bare land, right? So that's that's by the by. So getting back to it, let's say you are buying a home. If you are going to buy a home, when people are buying a home or coming to build a home, they try and do something that, oh, Charlie, look, like, let's say, we are talking middle class, right? Me and you. So we could do like a 3-bedroom house. Okay, like I'm buying land to do a 3-bedroom house. However, if we're going to rent, Jenny, would you rent a three-bedroom house?
Oh, no.
You wouldn't. You would get a nice chamber and hall at best for you right now. Even if perhaps for those who are married, they may consider a two-bedroom apartment. So you see, now it's no more it's no more like for like comparison. Your mortgage of now for a house of about $50,000 that will cost you about 4,000 cedis a month to service, 4,000 5,000 cedis a month to service. All right. Now you are comparing that with renting a chamber and hall somewhere for 800 cedis to 1,000 cedis. You see, that's a huge difference. So what's
Yeah.
happening to that 3,000 cedis? You are saving it. You save that 3,000 cedis in an asset that can actually grow and give you some returns. And you can, if you need a loan, you can use that as collateral. It is nimble, right? Now, speaking of that nimbleness, is where what brings me to a friend's story. This friend has spent some years building a house. Right, he got some land, so he started building quite early in life, and it got to a point where as it goes, and I see Adam, our resident real estate
Severe.
expert,
Mm.
quantity surveyor, knows this all too well. Rising costs. Now, my brother felt he could build this house with like 50,000 cities or so, 50, 70,000 cities. At the time we were talking some last year, he still hadn't finished and he had already sunk 100,000 in and he was about to make a payment of another 20,000 for them to do some work on it. So, like almost more than double what he had initially expected, and it's a la vie. That's how the thing goes, unless you are going to buy it quickly with a mortgage and you move on, right? Especially if you are building. So, he's looking back at his life now and he's older, getting to his 30s, and he's thinking, I want a better job. But all the jobs I'm looking out for to try to apply to are saying requires a master's degree. But he spent his money and his time on building this house, scrimping, because I'm like, hey, yeah, man, Charlie, yeah, how did you get this money? But you look at it and it's like sometimes a little but really diligent saving. Like, see, I would that was a good lesson. Like, he was able to, because he had that financial goal, he was able to squeeze himself and save, right? But now all that money is in that building. So now he's looking for new career opportunities and he's realizing that he doesn't have a master's and he's wasted the time and money. You know, so he's getting a bit displeased. And you know how these things go. It's a spiral, and to get you, it's like who moved my cheese? It's like now how to get out of that depth of of an emotional feeling or that kind of despair. It's a whole other distance. And even most importantly, just recently, he's like, "Eh, where he's staying some way, he wants to move because of something happening." I'm like, wait, hold up. No, no, you don't rent. You own a home. Like, you finish building. Moving is not part of your options, right?
And he
But
lives
that's
where in what he was building.
so it's. I think yes, I think he's completed, but
Okay.
it was part of like a family compound. So
Okay. Okay.
he's already living in that area. So now you want to move, and for most people, they're already living far off, especially for young people starting life. Chances are their parents are at a certain age that they have finished building their homes, and now you are living far away. So you are coming to the office in traffic and all that. Rent, come closer. Spend an hour less every day. Use that time to learn, do something more productive. Spend less money on fuel, that kind of thing. If you own a car, less money on wear and tear, less money on servicing your car, less money on spare parts, that kind of thing, right? Now he's just thinking, and I'm like, it's no more an option. So right now, if there's a job opportunity in Kumasi, what are you going to do? Now, instead of, oh, Charlie, quickly grab it and go, now you actually have to think, if I have built this house, or are you going to rent it? And an interesting thing is, for certain people who have invested in real estate, in building, on family homes, on family land, the question is, are your parents
Hmm.
who allowed you to take their
Willing
boys'
to,
quarters,
yeah,
are they willing to now bring renters in for you to
yeah.
try and recoup? It's a whole lot of drama, right? And calm down. Basically, is what I say. And all this story comes in is highlighting some of the key things that were in this in the points that the book talked about. I have one more example, but let's talk about the points that the book, or the keys that Robert Kiyosaki made about a home as liability before I give that last example. Right. Jenny, any other thoughts on his on the cases, on the reasons why he also felt why he felt a home is a liability?
Okay. So I think the I've already spoken about the expenses, but then one thing that is quite clear is that if I'm building a house and then I have an emotional tie to it, God knows the things that I'll buy to furnish that house, and paintings and yes. And before you realize it, if something happens to you and you're going to sell your peacock feathers that you thought you bought at very very expensive prices, and they were making your parlor look nice, and your arts and your living, see, they cannot help you. So they come with extra expenditure that is even not added to the fact the home, like furnishings, tiles from Spain, and all, like a lot of expenditure, a lot of expenditure. I know the tiles from Spain because apparently they are the in vogue tiles. Yes, yes.
Charlie,
You
you know,
see, yeah.
may I hope on this point?
Please do.
And especially for young people who are fresh out of school and have a good paying job, with prospects of at least you'll be growing up the ladder a little, nice corporate job. You tend to desire those kind of things, marble, kitchen countertop, the Spanish
I don't
styles you are
want
talking
furniture
about.
anymore. Yes,
You get what I'm saying? And all these things, they cost money that you
yes.
could be spending on something else. So and besides even just furnishing the home, other expenses that we don't think of, right? So my mother's house, for example, she did the plastering on the walls are cracking. I hear it's not really the walls that are cracking, it's just the plastering, right? So you have to remove a part. I think some other people, I know there's something related to salt in the ground. I'm sure them can comment on that kind of thing. It's a whole lot of repairs basically that come related to this. So people don't factor it in. But when you are renting, if something's poor, what do you do? Hey, if you're a
Oh
landlord,
yes, come and collect
come
you
and
and
fix
your
this.
house. Yes.
Mhm. Come and fix this, come and fix that. Then they fix it. That's if they are sensible. Then they fix it. If they are not sensible, what do you do? You pack your things and, like you are
Move.
saying, they should take their house. You go to somewhere else. And so people don't think about these things. In Ghana, we don't enforce things like property tax and those kind of things. So it may be hard for a Ghanaian to appreciate such a point, but there is the time coming. Look, if they are let me not go there. There's a time coming because the government is looking for money and they're trying to raise taxes. They are going to get stringent on some of these things. And I know some people do pay. Um, like people in East Legon and all that, they get billed every now and then. People in Tema, they get billed
Oh,
property tax.
incidentally, we get billed
Oh,
religious.
exactly. So if all these things they start to add up, and for you to even have your house right, home insurance, all those kind of expenses, like there are so many things that come up. There are so many things that come up. So people really need to give these things some thought. Right. Okay, let's see what else the book is saying. And it's talking about loss of time. So when I gave the example of my friend. He's lost so much time. His friends, his colleagues have gone done their masters. Now they can apply for those jobs, and now he has to spend another 1 or 2, 3 years to get to that same level. Lost time. And this is even human capital. How about the investments that you could have made? This mortgage example that I was given, a differential of like 3,000, let's even say 2,000 extra that you can save every month. You have that, and imagine that compounding over 5 years, over 10 years. That's a whole lot of money, especially for people who take 7 years to finish building their house. It is, it is a, there's an opportunity cost of that. You know, with this, I'll give an example. I'll give the example I was going to say. Now, I read something some time back. I would have to authenticate that story, but on a certain day in Nigeria, and then in 1990 or so. Um, there were two men in Lagos, and they had, is it 2 million naira or so, a certain amount of money, and they made two different decisions with that money. One person decided to do a business with the money. Another person decided to build a home. So the person who builds his home, he did housewarming and all that. It was fine. Then the person who built a business, 20 year he built his business, and now let's look at them 20 years later. 20 years later, the person who builds the home, he's still there scrimping and scraping for a salary and all that, and they're barely surviving, you know, the usual rat race kind of thing. But the person who builds the business, well, he's the owner of Zenith Bank, the founder of Zenith Bank. The same amount of money. My firm, for example, they said the founders say they started with a loan of $20,000. Someone could have also taken a mortgage of 20,000 at that same time, and now someone would have a house. Someone now has houses, if you know what I mean. I'm not saying business is not risky. Business is risky. There are many people who also started businesses that didn't work out. I'm not saying investments are not risky. There are many investments that don't work out, right? But there's that opportunity cost. Jenny, there's this thing that you like, delayed gratification. If owning a home is an emotional decision, and I can imagine you are trying to gratify those emotions, right? Why don't you delay gratifying those emotions? Because some of these people who invest well, now they have the pick of the homes that they want. They live in, oh my, cantonments like AU Village, those kind of places, man. Like they can live anywhere that they want because they delayed it a bit, invested elsewhere. Now as time has passed, they are much better off. You know, then there's the loss of additional capital. And speaking of the emotional thing, let me digress a little. There's a certain point at which I'll get people with the emotions. If you have a bad landlord, I get you. Jennifer, have you ever had a bad landlord?
I had a neglectful landlord. I won't say bad. He was just neglectful. Yeah.
Mm, okay. Well, that's bad enough. Some people even have it worse. Someone
Yeah.
who just gives them stress all day, every day. There are people like that. So many rules. You can't come home at this time.
You can't bring women home, I
Yeah.
know somebody like that. Yeah.
Oh, imagine. And then even worse, some people just suddenly say, you know what, my son is coming from abroad, so I'm coming to take care. Meanwhile,
Yes.
they've made you pay 5 years advance.
Mhm.
And now pay me back my money to his main chains. It's pull and let me pull. There's a whole lot of drama, right? Some people are even scamming people, renting the house to multiple people. There's drama, and I get that, but that should not force you to make a bad financial decision. There are cases where your emotions would come in, but we encourage you, make it a rational financial decision, before you go and take any bad decisions that will come back and bite you in the hiney. There are very good landlords. I was talking to someone over the weekend, and she said she found a place. I was like, why that place? She's like, she's found a place and it's an amazing landlord and she just loves it. Apart from the amenities being good, there are some people, like I know some places in Joel where it's run professionally. This is landlady who owns many houses in different places. So she treats it professionally. You try to find those things. There's a bit of a premium to it, but Charlie, it's better than just going to someone's backyard and then going to struggle with that person's emotions too. Robert Kiyosaki also mentions loss of additional capital, that differential that I was talking about, where you could have invested that all those expenses that you were paying, property tax, all those um, repair work, maintenance costs, all those things. They could have gone to invest in something else that will work better for you. Then there's also loss of education. The more you stay in the financial markets, the more you invest, the more you learn, especially as you engage with your financial advisor, your relationship manager. Hey, I saw this on my statement. What's going on? Compared to someone who doesn't know, who doesn't have an investment account or barely has anything, so doesn't pay attention. With as you are growing your wealth, you try to seek more understanding, and it will help equip you even better in your finances. So That's that loss of education that people have because they built their houses one cement bag at a time and didn't know much about financial institutions except to take on more loans to complete the house. Anyway, we spent a bit of time on the home as a liability. Um, the rich dad issues the disclaimer that yeah, he knows people will argue with him. He knows people have different opinions, but hey, this is what he suggests. So give it some thoughts. If it's something you want to consider to make a better financial decision, perhaps you should go get that option. So we yes, just a recap on the fact that the rich buy assets, the poor only have expenses, and the middle class buy liabilities that they think they're assets. So very obviously, we can see that the home for most people is really a liability. People will think they are buying a car. So for someone, a car that they are using for Uber is an asset. So for someone, that car that they are using just to the big car that they really can barely afford the fuel and all not, it's just a liability. So you have to give that some thought. Okay, so let me see. Yeah, okay. So just two more points before we wrap it up. When the book earlier talked about something, the main theme for this chapter, or the main rule that was outlined for this chapter, if you recall, and I'll repeat it. It said it's not how much money you make, it's how much money you keep. And Jennifer alluded to these kind of things earlier, especially for the people who start making money and they fall into that trap of starting to buy certain things to show that okay, day to they've arrived. But Jenny, do you recall what the book was saying about people who start earning higher incomes and start going for flashier, fancier houses and other items?
Okay, so um, people like that who where their money, let like flashy houses, flashy cars, and everything. You are not building assets as we've already identified, and you fall into the trap where you come back to say that my money is not enough, even though your salary may have doubled, may
Mm,
have tripled,
mm,
but then you are still not feeling like that now because like when I get 1 million Ghana cedis as income, there's a car that's a 1.2. There's a shoe that I can buy for $500,000. Like there are lots, your expenses upgrade with you as your income upgrades. So your that flashy lifestyle, before you realize you are bereft, and then your salary or your income is probably the same or even lesser than your expenditure, and you are back to zero or even back to negative. So yeah, it is the flashy lifestyle and all of that really takes
mhm.
away from your income and then your seed capital. Yeah, let me put it like that.
Yes, yes, it does. It does. Imagine, like the example you were given, imagine that you are earning 1 million a month, 1 million cities a month, and yet you are still spending like you were in the early ages. Remember this book, Psychology of Money, right? Morgan Housel, and how he said he's still spending. He and his wife are still spending how much they were spending in their
When
twenties. You
yeah.
know, so imagine 1 million in income a month, and you are still spending. Let's just even say 10,000 cities a month. Ha! That's a lot of money that you are saving.
Mhm.
Your wealth will be growing astronomically. Astronomically. Amazing.
Yeah.
Anyway, and I guess
I just want to say something small and that,
mhm,
and this reminds me of the first story that we read about in The Millionaire Next Door, where a man was he was a janitor, and when he died, people thought, oh, this janitor, that he had such a predictable lifestyle that we all knew where he was going to be at a particular point in time, and they were gobsmacked when he died, and then he left millions of US dollars. And so seriously, it's not your income, it's not your income, it's how much you can keep. Yeah, because
yes,
most of us make more than the janitor made, but then he was still able to put down some money and become a millionaire. Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly, man. It's not it's about what you spend and the things that you desire. And also the issue of keeping up with the Joneses. You see that
Yep.
your friend has bought the latest iPhone, you also want to go and get one. Your friend has done this, you also want to get this. The next door neighbor has gotten a new car, you also want to get another one. Charlie, unsustainable, man. It's unsustainable. And even now with social media, oh man, just exhausting thinking about it.
Mhm.
Okay, you know, in as much as I like this book, even before I reread it, I knew that there were some things I didn't quite agree with in this book. I must admit, there are some things that I am a bit concerned with. I would encourage everyone to read this book, but I think it's worth discussing some of these things that we are concerned with, right? Jenny, I don't know if you have any concerns. Do you have any? I didn't prime you to this, but do you have any concerns or any things that you disagreed with in the book?
I'll have to really think about it. So you can go first, and then I would go through my mind and come up with one. Yeah.
Okay. Okay, great. So when I finished reading this book many years ago, yeah, about 10 years ago, there was one thought in my head. I need to be an entrepreneur. And that was I read it in the second semester of first year. So I spent my second year in undergrad trying to be an entrepreneur, blew through all my treasury bills that my mother had all my susu that my mother had been saving up in the bank for me. Um, but I made wonderful relationships. My network grew. I learned a lot about business. So I don't regret it, right? But that's the takeaway I got from the book. I must be an entrepreneur. That's my first concern about this book. It's saying financial literacy, but I don't think it's really about financial literacy. It's more about literacy to become an entrepreneur. Should I call it entrepreneurial literacy? Right? Be,
Hmm.
and this is my concern with it. If he issues a disclaimer, all right, to say that if this is the kind of life you want, if you want to be worth hundreds of millions, you want to be worth millions, you want to be worth billions, this is what you should do, then I'll be fine. Then he's issued that disclaimer, right? But it has a certain condescending tone about it, and that everyone must be like this else they are wrong. But truth is, not everyone can be an entrepreneur. Not everyone is cut out for it. In fact, not everyone can be the manager. Else, who's going to be the secretary? Who's going to be the driver? Who's going to be all these things, right? Like, not everyone can be those things. So why not give some room to some people, all right? Another thing that is mentioned is that his stance on mutual funds, and effectively saying that mutual funds, yeah, they are help you diversify, but they are quote unquote is the easy way to go about it, and you are dashing your money to financial advisors. Yes, full disclaimer, I work for Ghana's largest asset manager, and our flagship products are mutual funds. We have the largest collection of mutual funds with huge AUMs. I get it. All right. This is how my bread is buttered. But here's the thing, not everyone can do the kind of work that it takes to know where to invest directly. Especially when you are not in developed markets like the US, where you have so many options, so you could do something. But for those of us in the developed markets, we should we can do it indirectly with these people, do it at a good cost, good price, and then we move. Even in developed markets, there's a Warren Buffett makes a case, and he's an advocate for index funds, right? So you can also look at index funds. You don't have to go in directly, but it's like the book is advocating that you need to learn everything about stocks. You need to learn about financial assets so well that you can do it for yourself instead of going to pay a professional. But here's the thing, people are doctors, they are plumbers, they are teachers, there are so many other professions. They can't finish their day job and come and do this and take care of their families and do all the other things that they have to do. You get what I'm saying? So if they can get a professional to give um, that work to do it for them at a low cost, at a reasonable fee, Why not? You shouldn't chastise people for making such a choice because we need them to do the other things that they are specializing in. You get what I'm saying? So yeah, on these two main issues of preaching like entrepreneurship is the thing, I disagree. I get that the richest people in the world are entrepreneurs. They own businesses through equities. Unlike someone like Jamie Dimon, who is an employee, and because of stock options and all, he became a billionaire. I get that. But not everyone needs to be a billionaire. Not everyone needs to be a millionaire. People just need to go back to Robert Kiyosaki's definition of retirement, that his assets can take care of his expenses, barring any cataclysmic
Cataclysmic. Yeah.
scenarios, right? And for someone, that may just be they need 100,000 a year, and they have enough investments to provide them with 100,000 a year, keeping up with inflation, and they're fine. Somebody maybe 20,000, So yeah, yeah, that's my concern with the book. That makes me take the book with a pinch of salt. Yeah, Jenny,
Okay.
what do you think about these concerns I've
Um,
raised?
so I want to talk. I'll take the first one now. The everybody has to be an entrepreneur. So I get this. He segued into this when he was talking about taxes, right? When he came up with the corporations and how taxes were done and all of that. I get his point of view, but then I really agree with you on the fact that we don't all need to be millionaires to be entrepreneurs to be millionaires. There are people who are employees who have been able to put things money aside and then been able to get to that millionaire status. Yes, it's not oh one size fits all, we all have to go and do something. And then he's also not discounting the fact that a lot of businesses fail in their beginning stages. And you can like it's let's say you have this Zenith Bank man that you just spoke about, it could have gone haywire, the business could have collapsed. So it's not like a set path that oh for you to be a millionaire you have to become an entrepreneur, and your first business will probably start up or something. If you read millionaires like entrepreneurs, sometimes they started doing a lot of things before they got to where they are. So it's not a one size fits all. Yeah, I understand. And as you said, Jamie Diamond, there are a lot of people who are millionaires or have money to cater for themselves and their families, 5 generations to come, and they did that through working like normal 9 to 5, quote unquote. So yeah, it's true. Then it also comes to the mutual funds issue. So I agree that you need to know a little bit about where you are investing your money, because there are unscrupulous people in this world, so that you can be able to sift the grains and know that this thing that this person is telling me, that's a mutual fund or it's a unit trust, is it in the norm, is it what it's supposed to be? But seriously, you do not need to be able to pick stocks and pick securities, and it's not as easy as he's probably making it seem in the book. And believe you me, even he said some parts in the book that even he has accountants and lawyers and things that he pays to do that work for him. And this is the person that's preaching to you. So you really need to know some basics so that you can make sound decisions when you are choosing people to represent you, mutual funds, accountants, everything. But then you should be able to say that, oh, so this is how I'm going to make my money. And this is how I want to keep the money and grow it. If I am very good at how I am making the money, then I can employ people too who are very good at keeping the money and making sure it grows on my behalf. Checking every quarter, every year, checking with them. But I don't need to be micromanaging them so much, because believe you me, you can't be doing your day job and doing the work that the people that are managing your money to are doing every day. It won't be possible. Yeah, thank you.
Here, here. Yeah, so just a few concerns that we have as we've explained, that I have, that Jenny has also seen. where I'm coming from, right? But hey, it doesn't take it away that this is an amazing book to read. It's very good information, and I strongly encourage you to read it. Jenny, do you know something interesting? When you go through the comments for last week's session, there's a comment in there by I don't recall the person's name, but there's a comment in there, and the person is saying that she has been considering the book and she has finally chosen to read it mainly because of the session we had, the lesson one. So at least I'm glad that someone has seen the benefit of reading this book and has been drawn to read it. In fact, I have the comment here, and it's from Miriam, and she says, "Heard a lot about this book and finally downloaded it a week ago. This review is
Oh.
legit my inspiration to dive fully into it. Thank you, guys. Amazing. I love this. I love this. I love this so much." So, Jenny, keep up the good work that you are doing. Keep inspiring people to read this book, and yeah, hopefully more people can read it and we can all become financially literate, and in 5 years, 10 years to come, we'll all be wealthy the way we want to be, whatever our definition of
Yeah,
wealth
of
is, right?
welfish. Yeah.
Yes. Anyway, great, great, great. So all too soon is the end of another session, but just a reminder, we have our Thursday conversations coming up, and this Thursday we are having my money story. We're having a conversation with Deborah Ama Akote, the Chief Investment Officer of Data Bank Asset Management. But no, it's not technical stuff. It's more about hearing her financial journey as an individual, as a professional, as someone coming out of school to where she's reached in her late 30s. It's about the decisions that she made. We've heard a lot from people in Money Convos, Jennifer, me, Mimi, Paulina, David, Prince, Saram. It's time you hear from other people, hear how other people are engaging with money, the good decisions that they are making, so that you can also learn a thing or two, right? So tune in on Thursday on Clubhouse so that you can hear this conversation at 7 p.m. And next week we are resuming with a book review, but on Monday. Yes, back to Mondays, where we'll be taking another lesson from this wonderful book that we are having. Follow us on social media everywhere you go. And if you feel like you want to contribute to our financial literacy journey in terms of doing some work to encourage people, we need volunteers at Money Convo. So do hit us up on social media. It's Money Convos GH everywhere, or send us an email, moneyconvosgh@gmail.com. I hope to see you soon. Do take care. Have a wonderful week. Bye.
Bye. Thank you for taking the time to listen to our thoughts. I hope you learned a thing or two and start practicing. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Clubhouse, and Facebook. And subscribe to our YouTube and podcast. Do tell a friend about Money Convos so we all become wealthy together. Talk to you soon. Bye.